Why do we love RPGs? Uh, not those. I mean these. To answer this question, we need to take a further look into the history of role-playing itself as well as its purpose. Some early examples of this come from historic battle reenactments where people would gather to, reenact battles of the past. Another example of the practice came from the group of traveling actors who would practice a form of improvisational theater called Commedia dell'arte. Essentially, both activities were meant to be able to give information while playing the role of a character, whether it be predetermined or improvised. Now, if we wanted to find the blueprint of the traditional tabletop RPG, we would grab elements of the examples I just mentioned and blend them with traditional strategy board games such as chess or Risk, and we may come across something similar to a tabletop RPG. And even though, during the 1970s, we saw that a few tabletop games were released with the traditional fantasy style that we've come to know and love, there was one game that would stand out as a key factor in making the tabletop role-playing game what it is today, and that's
Dungeons and Dragons.
Published in 1974 by Gary Gygax, Dungeons & Dragons became a niche game among college students and fans of science fiction, and really anything fantasy related. Dungeons & Dragons to this day is a game unlike anything else. While many games have a focus on competition or trying your hardest to beat your opponent, Dungeons & Dragons is different in the sense that even though technically you are going against someone, that being the DM, or Dungeon Master in this case, it's really about building a story with a group of friends and working together to get stronger and to overcome the challenges that are brought before you. To be as straightforward and to the point about a somewhat complex game, I'll summarize it as this. You and a group of friends get together, in a basement of course, and you each create your own character with their own personalities and traits. You can select whichever race and class you want to choose and be placed in situations brought upon you by a dungeon master that you would never really have a chance to experience in real life. This is one of the best reasons to play this game, simply because you get to learn so much about yourself by not being yourself. It's a learning experience each session you play. It also closely mirrors my reasoning for thinking acting is one of the most valuable professions in the world. Now we enter the 80s. Though I can and easily do praise Dungeons & Dragons for being what it is, I'll have to admit it was not something I found up until my early 20s, so my introduction to the role-playing game genre was through video games. The earliest RPG on a console was Dragonstomper, released in 1982 on the Atari 2600. According to my ultimate source, Wikipedia, the plot of the game involves a dragon hunter who is to defeat an evil dragon and receive an amulet. Now that may be a little hard to tell, seeing as you're a white speck on the screen while doing all this, but this game did however have the tropes we see in games today, such as leveling up, buying equipment, and essentially making your way from point A to point B. Outdated may be an understatement, but you cannot take away how important Dragonstomper was to the genre as we know it today. This trend continued over the years, allowing developers to come up with incredible titles that would take the player on wild adventures. Some very popular RPG franchises really did try adding their own spin to their games, such as Phantasy Star, Earthbound, my personal favorite series, Final Fantasy, and some could even debate that The Legend of Zelda in its own way would fit the description. Though popularity of these kind of games varied from region to region, one thing remained the same. These games would allow players to step into a brand new world as a character that they get to take control over. This is very similar to my prior statement about Dungeons & Dragons and the experience that you gain from diving into another realm, acquiring experience inside the game and out. I find the one thing that truly makes role-playing games outshine other genres is their unique use of narrative. Now this has obviously been done before in many other games, but I do think that this style really allowed developers to unleash their inner novelist by giving many of the characters depth and personality. This allows you to truly feel for many of the characters, whether it be anger, sadness, joy, or any other emotion that we can feel as humans. Using Final Fantasy as an example again, you can tell a huge difference in the character development from the first game, where the characters honestly don't speak at all, and kind of just do things because they just do.
Okay, boss.
And a game like Final Fantasy VI, where the narrative mixes in so well with each character's personality that you end up feeling a unique way for each one and caring so much about how they feel. Granted, this may feel like it takes away a bit from the feeling you get building characters from scratch, but there is definitely the sense of being able to build up these characters to your liking. Nowadays, the genre has become something so much bigger. I feel as though the term role-playing game has widened to a larger point where you can see aspects of an RPG in games that would normally not fit the bill. Hell, even in a game like NBA 2K20, you can find many elements that were traditionally in RPGs, especially so in the game's story mode, in which you create your own character, have them make decisions that affect them, as well as leveling up and building stats. It honestly may as well be a Square Enix game. I wholeheartedly believe games are often like this because that's just something the average human appreciates. Seeing growth over time while also seeing hard work give satisfying results. To summarize what I'm getting at, to roleplay holds so much more to it than playing pretend. It could also be going to a public park while carrying an arsenal of boffer weapons you use to attack your friends. Regardless, it's about being able to exit this world even for a few moments to enter another in which you can learn about yourself and those around you. It's about understanding that if you put enough work into something, it'll get easier with time. Overall, I do think to roleplay is to find multiple perspectives to live by, and role-playing games is one of the best mediums of doing just that. And that's why we love RPGs.